here's Brody Brazil.
So as I'm recording this, we've got a World Series going on right now between the Dodgers and Jays, and obviously an American team, but also a Canadian team. And baseball right now north of the border, it's a huge buzz. There's a lot of hype, and why not? The Jays are in their first World Series since 1993 when Joe Carter touched them all. But look, Canada's always been a great market for the Jays. I say the entire country of Canada. It's not just the city of Toronto. It's not just the province of Ontario. It's not just Eastern Canada. The entire country backs its baseball team. Now, they used to have two teams, used to have the Expos. That's a totally different story. But think about the entire state of California, because it's a similar demographic population-wise as the country of Canada. Imagine if California only had one baseball team. How many fans of that one California team you would inevitably have? That's the situation the Jays have, which is now an interesting shift of gears because Rob Manfred, baseball's commissioner, he was on a radio program on the network Sportsnet up in Canada, and he was asked about potentially expanding Major League Baseball by one more team, but by doing it north of the border. Listen to this.
We're coast to coast, and we have an affiliate station in Vancouver. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you. We know that, it looks like Tampa Bay's situation has been settled. Knock on wood or plexiglass, I guess, in this case. Where do we stand regarding expansion, realignment? And is there a world in which a city like Vancouver could be a potential candidate?
Well, what I've said about expansion, Tampa, Oakland's resolved, Tampa's on the road to resolution. I'm hopeful that once we get through the next round of bargaining, we can turn to an active expansion process where cities start to submit materials to a committee. And we try to pick two cities. We definitely need an Eastern time zone city, and we need a Western time zone city, just for format purposes. Even if you don't realign, you'd still want to do that. I think Vancouver's a great city. I think that, Canada has been unbelievably supportive of Major League Baseball. I can't say enough about the support that the Blue Jays have received. I happen to be in Western Canada this summer, was absolutely blown away by the Blue Jay gear, the talk about the Blue Jays, how into it they are. The Seattle club will tell you that, the best series they have year in and year out is when the Blue Jays come to visit and when a ton of people from Canada come over to watch the games. So, I think all of that is indicia of the fact that, another city in Canada clearly could work for us.
Well, that's going to start some conversation, which quite honestly, I don't think previously existed, right? When we've been talking about expansion with Major League Baseball, and I'm sorry that I've put Rob Manfred on kind of a still frame there. It looks like he's sleeping. He's just blinking, and I caught him mid-blink. I'll get off of that freeze frame in just a second, but I just want to make this point. Not a lot of people have been talking about Vancouver as an expansion city. You've got Salt Lake City, you've got Portland, and each of those places and their states have come together with $800 and $900 million in stadium locations and ownership groups and all these things that are already in place. Out in Nashville, there's been a long-standing push to try and get Major League Baseball out east. I don't know if there's anything formally together in Vancouver other than a radio host and the commissioner of baseball bringing up this hypothetical, which now, again, because of the World Series being in Canada, is going to amplify this conversation. So let's kind of break down what Rob Manfred just said. I normally take those videos and I start them and I stop them, but that was only like a minute and a half, and I didn't want to segment too much what he was saying all in one swoop. For Rob Manfred to simply sit there and say, well, I hope Tampa's resolved, but, Oakland's resolved. Is that the real wording you want to use about ripping a team away from its city after 57 years? Oakland is resolved? As in almost like it just proves that baseball wanted that problem to be over. They resolved the problem. Why even call it Oakland being resolved anymore? Why not saying, well, the A's situation in Oakland is done? That's at least a lot more accurate than saying Oakland is resolved. They're not Oakland anymore, according to them and everybody else. How was Oakland resolved? Oakland was a lot of things in this. Oakland was not resolved, if you catch my drift. So I did take a little exception to that. I took a lot of exception to that. You also heard Rob say, once we get through the next round of bargaining, as in collective bargaining, as in the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, which expires in December of 2026, ahead of the start of any 2027 season that may or may not start on time, that may or may not actually happen. This is a big one right here, right? Because this is flat out admission that we can't even really broach the thought of expansion until we get a next CBA in place. And for all intents and purposes and everything I've heard internally, externally, is that these two sides are so far apart on their negotiations that there's no even real assurance of a 2027 season at all at this point. Things could change. We are still 13 months away, but guess what? Those 13 months are going to go by just like that. And if you're asking me what I assume in the way of progress is going to be not much, especially in the next 10 months, right? A year from now, I don't think we're going to have any developments on progress with a new CBA. So the point is, we should almost shelve this entire conversation right here, right now. What are we talking about Vancouver and Salt Lake City and Portland for? The commissioner is flat out admitting that we can't even tackle this until we get through the next round of bargaining. And that's going to be a huge fight in itself. Also, when the commissioner says we need an East and a West city, because he says that's just the way that the format has to work out. Yeah, but are you telling me that if you've got, hypothetically, Salt Lake City and Portland all lined up and they are perfect and they are flawless and they've got the stadiums and they've got, the proper money to do this and they've got the orchestration and they've got the fan bases behind them, but then you're like, yeah, but they're both out west. This isn't fair. You know what? Even though Nashville's not even really in on this, and the land situation isn't great, the public money situation doesn't exist, the ownership group we don't know about. And again, I'm just making a hypothetical. This could be Nashville, this could be Orlando, it could be Montreal. I'm just saying that you really think you have to pick a team and a city out west and one out east? Why not put two out west and then just realign? Take the Houston Astros and put them in a central division. Why are the Houston Astros in the AL West? Tell me what is west about Houston. Houston's basically in the southeast quadrant of our country. Essentially, geographically, you could look at a map. It's definitely not west. It's more central than anything else. My point is, I think you can pick two cities out west. Pick the best two cities. Pick the most thriving Major League Baseball markets. This would be such a mistake. And I'm not saying this with a horse in the race, honestly. Unless Oakland is in the conversation, or quite honestly, now how I feel about Montreal and watching that recent documentary and how they deserve a second chance. Outside of that, you should just pick the two best cities, the two best platforms to help Major League Baseball succeed. It's ridiculous that it's got to be one out east and one out west. That seems so formulaic that it hurts. Putting a team in Vancouver. Now, you heard the commissioner say that, yeah, the rivalry is pretty intense and you got a lot of people coming over from Canada to come down to a Mariners game to watch the Jays. Do you think, hypothetically, the two teams that you just mentioned there, the Mariners in Seattle, because of their proximity just right across the border, basically, to Vancouver. I know it's not like a border town situation, but it's a short drive. It's a respectably short drive from Vancouver to Seattle. You can do it in an afternoon, no problem. Do you really want to cut down on the people who drive in from Vancouver and go to a Mariners game right now? Do the Mariners want to cut down on their fan base, whatever fans they might have in Vancouver? I would, and I've been to Van enough to say this, I think there are still more Jays fans in Van than Mariners fans. Correct me if I'm wrong if you're from Vancouver, if you're a Vancouverite. I love that, by the way. I love to just get confirmation. Am I right about that? But from my experience, more Jays fans than Mariners fans, and that's fine. But the point is, that means then you're taking away Jays fans from Vancouver. Do you think the Toronto Blue Jays want that? Even though they're 2,000 miles away from Toronto, right? That's probably about the distance. Do you think the Jays franchise wants to lose its fans out in Vancouver? So would the Mariners and the Jays object? That's what I'm trying to get to here. Of course they would. And I've said this before, outside of Toronto, what's the other Major League Baseball city in Canada? Well, Montreal had a team, and Montreal, I think, would love a team again. They'd love a second chance. Is it doable? Can they get everything together? Stadium ownership? I don't know. I don't know that Vancouver is. It's a great town. I'd love it. It's beautiful. Huge sports fans between the BC Lions, their football team, and obviously the Canucks of the NHL. I don't know. Is Vancouver clamoring for baseball right now? Or are we just talking about this because there's a World Series going on in Canada? I don't know, but I'm here to tell you that two teams, the Jays and the Mariners, would definitely object to this. Another city in Canada clearly could work. Well, what? That's your exact quote. So Rob, could another city in Canada like, I don't know, Montreal work? Rob? You know, the city where Major League Baseball bought the team for its final 3 years in Montreal and bought it to what, maybe try and save it? Or were those the transitional years of we're going to move this out of here no matter what? Jeffrey Loria didn't ultimately move the team from Montreal to Washington to become the Nationals. He sold it to Major League Baseball, who then turned around and sold it to an ownership group in Washington, D.C. after moving it. Do you understand what I'm saying here? So to come back right here, right now and say another city in Canada clearly could work. I know you're talking about Vancouver mostly, but I think you just opened the door to Montreal too. If you're really going to say that, you got to be more careful with your words. But here's the main thing. What did you think the commissioner was going to say? You know, I'm not sure about the demographics of Vancouver, and we hold high standards, and so we're not really, that's never a possibility. Okay, Commissioner, well, how about Lincoln, Nebraska? Would you put a team there? How about Topeka, Kansas? Would you put a team there? How about Akron, Ohio? Would you put a team there? The commissioner is going to say yes to every single place. Every single place right now is a possibility. You know why? Because the more names that you throw into a hat means more competition for the Salt Lakes and for the Portlands. And all the commissioner wants to do is drum up more interest and make it so that the owners get a bigger piece of pie, they get a bigger expansion fee, they get more cities vying in competition to try and compete for a Major League Baseball expansion franchise. That's why the commissioner's never going to turn down a city unless they are absolutely not fit for the opportunity. So do you understand what I'm saying here is never turn down competition if you're the commissioner. That's only going to hurt your business. And that's why, of course, he's going to say glowing things about Vancouver. I agree. Vancouver's a great place. That's not the point. But to throw them in the mix here and think that they'd have as fair a shot as, let's be honest, Salt Lake or Portland right now, which have $800 and $900 million of public money and land and ownership already lined up, like it's unfair to say it like that. It's unfair to speculate and go down that road. I think if he's being transparent, the real answer is, you know what? As far as we're concerned, every place is a candidate right now. That would at least be a more honest and straightforward answer. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments section below, especially if you're Canadian, especially if you're from Vancouver. Let me know about what you think of the commissioner's comments. Put those down in the comments section below. Also, thumbs up while you're down there. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I would love to see you back here next time.